The engineer thought he was helping a warrior, but she turned out to be a Galactic Empress. Elias Wren never planned to live at the edge of known space. He had once studied on Earth, in clean halls with white lights and quiet rooms. He learned systems engineering there, how machines failed, how they survived, and how they could be made stronger without becoming complicated. His teachers called him gifted. His classmates called him boring. Elias called himself practical. That practicality was why he now lived on Kestrel Station, a small repair hub floating between trade routes no one important used anymore. The station was old, the paint faded, the lights uneven. Most people who came here did so because they had nowhere else to go. Elias liked it that way. His workshop sat near the outer ring of the station, close to the docks. It was not large, but it was clean. Tools were arranged neatly. Spare parts were labeled. Screens showed quiet system readings instead of flashing alerts. He was working on a coolant pump when the station alarms chimed. Not the emergency alarm, the arrival tone. Elias paused and looked up at the dock camera feed. A ship was approaching, slowly, carefully, as if even a small movement would cause it to fall apart. "That's not good," Elias said softly. The ship was not human. Its hull was dark and smooth, shaped like layered metal petals folded around a core. Strange symbols ran along its surface, dim and flickering. Energy leaks sparkled faintly around damaged seams. Elias frowned. "This design," he murmured, "that's not trade, that's military." The ship barely made it into the dock. Magnetic clamps locked on just in time. For a moment, Elias thought it might still drift away, but then the ship went still. The dock airlocks pressurized. Someone was inside. Elias hesitated. He was not a soldier. He was not security. But he was the only engineer on duty, and if the ship failed completely, it could damage the station. He grabbed his tool belt and headed to the dock. The airlock doors opened with a slow hiss. A tall alien woman stepped forward. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin was a deep metallic gray, smooth like polished stone. Her eyes were sharp and bright, a pale silver that reflected the dock lights. She wore armor damaged, cracked, and scorched, but it was elegant, shaped to allow movement rather than bulk. She stood straight despite her injuries. "I request repair services," she said. Her voice was calm, controlled, and perfectly translated by the station systems. Elias blinked. Sure," he said. "I'm Elias, I run the repair bay." She inclined her head slightly. "I am Kale." No rank, no title, just a name. Elias gestured toward the workshop. "Let's get your ship stable first. You look like you've been flying on hope alone." Kale did not smile, but something in her posture relaxed. Inside the workshop, Elias ran diagnostics on the alien vessel. The results made his eyebrows rise higher with every line of data. Power systems layered on top of each other. Command relays built with redundancy beyond anything he had seen. Navigation arrays capable of tracking dozens of objects at once. "This is impressive," Elias said quietly. Kale watched him closely. "Is it beyond your ability?" "No," Elias replied honestly. "But it's beyond what most people bring to a backwater station." Kale said nothing. Elias continued scanning. "Your ship has taken serious stress damage, but the core is intact. Structural lattice is strong. Whoever designed this knew what they were doing." "They believed strength comes from discipline," Kale said. "And adaptability?" Elias asked. She paused. "That was considered unnecessary." Elias nodded slowly. "That explains a lot." As repairs began, Elias worked the way he always did, calm, careful, methodical. He replaced damaged conduits, rerouted power flows, and stabilized energy leaks. But he also did something else. He improved things. Not by changing the design completely, but by simplifying it. He added alternate paths so systems could bypass damaged areas automatically. He reduced command bottlenecks. He gave subsystems limited decision-making capability so they would not freeze if they lost orders. Kale noticed. "You alter more than you repair," she said. Elias did not look up. "I make sure it won't fail the same way twice." "That is not standard procedure." "Standard procedure gets people stranded," Elias replied. She studied him for a long moment. "You speak as if failure is expected." Elias shrugged. "Everything fails eventually. The trick is deciding what happens after." Kale was silent but thoughtful. Hours passed. The station lights dimmed to night cycle levels. Outside the viewport, stars drifted slowly past. Elias wiped grease from his hands and leaned back. "Ship should hold now," he said. "Not perfect, but safe." Kale nodded. "You have my gratitude." She turned to leave, then paused. "Why do you live here, Elias Wren?" she asked. "Someone with your skill could serve powerful fleets." Elias considered the question. "I don't like power," he said simply. "I like fixing things." Kale looked at him with unreadable eyes. "Then you are rarer than you know." Later that night, Elias reviewed the final system logs. Something bothered him. One of the command subsystems he had rerouted connected not just to ship functions, but to fleet coordination protocols. Scaled down, inactive, but unmistakable, his fingers froze over the console. "This isn't a warrior's ship," he whispered. "It was a command vessel, not for one ship, but for many." Elias leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Just who did I help?" he asked the empty room. Outside, Kale stood alone in the dock, looking at the stars. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself a small, private smile. Elias did not sleep well that night. He lay on his narrow bunk, staring at the low ceiling of his quarters, listening to the quiet hum of Kestrel Station. Normally, the sound comforted him. It was the sound of systems working as they should. Tonight, it felt too loud. His mind kept returning to the same image, the hidden command architecture inside Kale's ship. Fleet-level design, not something a lone warrior would ever need. "Maybe I'm overthinking," Elias muttered to himself, but he knew he was. Engineers learned early to trust patterns. Machines lied less than people, and this machine was telling a very clear story. Kale was not who she claimed to be. The next morning, Elias returned to the workshop early. He told himself it was just routine follow-up work, but the truth was simpler. He wanted answers. Kale was already there. She stood near her ship, armor removed, wearing simple dark clothing that looked almost ceremonial. Without the armor, she seemed less like a soldier and more like something else. Something controlled, deliberate, and heavy with responsibility. "You rise early," she said. "So do broken ships," Elias replied. "I wanted to run a few final checks." She studied him. "You did not trust last night's results?" "I trust them," Elias said. "I just like to understand why they work." That earned him a brief pause. Then Kale nodded. "Proceed." As Elias moved through the ship systems, he noticed something new. The improvements he had made were already being used, not passively, but actively. The ship was learning. Adaptive routing adjusted itself based on simulated failures. Subsystems shared data without waiting for central approval. It was doing exactly what Elias had designed it to do, and it was doing it faster than expected. "This architecture wasn't meant to behave like this," Elias said aloud. Kale folded her hands behind her back. "No." "It was meant to obey." Elias glanced at her. "And now," she looked at the ship, "now it thinks." Elias felt a chill. They worked in silence for a while. Eventually, Elias broke it. "Kale," he said carefully, "your ship has command protocols that go far beyond personal combat or patrol operations." "Yes." No hesitation, no denial. Elias straightened. "You told me you were a warrior without a banner." "I was," she replied. "That's not the same as what you are now." Kale met his eyes. Her gaze was steady, unreadable. "No," she said, "it is not." She did not explain immediately. Instead, she asked questions. Why did humans design systems to assume failure? Why allow lower units to make decisions without approval? Why value flexibility over control? Elias answered honestly. "Because reality doesn't care about rank," he said. "If something breaks, it breaks. You either adapt or you stop working." "In my civilization," Kale said slowly, "failure is considered disobedience." Elias frowned. "That sounds inefficient." She almost smiled. Later that day, Kale made a request. "I need one more modification," she said. Elias looked up from his console. "The ship is already stable." "This is not about stability," Kale said. "It is about reach." She showed him a schematic. Elias stared at it in silence. It was not a weapon. It was a command interface. One that allowed a single individual to manage multiple task groups, ships, logistics, communications, and diplomacy through layered abstraction. "This isn't for a ship," Elias said quietly. "No," Kale agreed. "It is for a system." Elias leaned back. "Kale, this is empire-level design." She did not argue. Elias felt a familiar internal conflict, the one that had driven him away from Earth in the first place. Power, not the kind that came from weapons or fear, but the kind that reshaped how people lived. He had always avoided it, choosing quiet work over grand influence. But here it was, sitting in front of him. "I need to know something," Elias said. Kale waited. "If I build this, what happens next?" Kale was silent for a long moment, then she spoke. My people are divided, she said, not by enemies but by structure, rigid hierarchies, delayed decisions, leaders who cannot see beyond their own position. She turned to face him fully. I do not wish to conquer, she said. I wish to restore. Elias studied her expression. You're not asking for control, he said slowly. You're asking for resilience. Yes, that answer mattered. Elias agreed, but he did it his way. He did not design a throne. He designed a network. He built systems that allowed regional autonomy without collapse. Communication layers that filtered noise but preserved truth. Decision frameworks that rewarded cooperation instead of obedience. Kale watched closely. You do not design for rulers, she said. I design for systems that outlive them, Elias replied. She said nothing, but she understood. As the days passed, the station noticed changes. Kale's ship no longer felt dormant. It hummed with quiet purpose. Data flowed in controlled streams. Long-range receivers activated, listening instead of speaking. Messages arrived. Not distress calls, questions, requests for verification, for coordination, for guidance. Elias realized then that Kale had not come here to hide. She had come here to prepare. One evening, Elias stood alone in the workshop, watching the system simulations. They were beautiful. Not because they were powerful, but because they were stable. Even under extreme stress, they bent instead of breaking. Kale entered quietly. It is time, she said. For what? Elias asked. For the truth. She activated a projection. A symbol filled the air, ancient, complex, and unmistakable. Imperial. Elias exhaled slowly. You're not just part of the Empire, he said. No, Kale replied. I am its Empress. Not crowned, not seated, but rightful. Elias laughed softly, not from humor, but from disbelief. I thought I was helping a warrior, he said. You were, Kale said. I have fought longer than you know. She stepped closer. But I cannot win this alone. Elias looked at the systems he had built, at the philosophy he had unknowingly embedded into the bones of a civilization. What happens when they realize humans helped you? He asked. Kale's eyes gleamed. Then the galaxy will learn something important, she said. What's that? That humans do not seek power, Kale said, but power changes shape when humans touch it. Outside Kestrel Station, signals spread quietly. No threats, no demands, only coordination. Across the stars, old systems began to respond. And for the first time in generations, an empire felt flexible. The first sign of trouble was silence. Elias noticed it while checking station diagnostics. Kestrel Station was never truly quiet. There were always stray signals, trade chatter, outdated broadcasts, automated probes drifting by. Now there was nothing. No noise, no background traffic, just empty space. That's not normal, Elias said to himself. He ran a deeper scan. Long-range sensors showed something even stranger. Ships were still out there, but they were not transmitting. They were listening, carefully. Kale stood beside him, arms folded behind her back, eyes fixed on the sensor display. They have noticed, she said. Elias swallowed. How many? All who matter, Kale replied. Across known space, analysts were confused. Trade guilds saw coordination patterns that did not match any known alliance. Border authorities detected fleets adjusting course without orders. Communication relays rerouted traffic smoothly, without congestion, without delay. Nothing was being forced. That was the problem. Empires expected threats. They did not know how to respond to cooperation. On Kestrel Station, a priority signal finally arrived. Elias watched it appear on the screen. Encrypted, high-level, imperial origin. He looked at Kale. They're calling you? She nodded. They are calling the throne. Elias hesitated. Are you going to answer? Kale stepped closer to the console. Not yet, she turned to him. First, they must understand that the throne has changed. Elias did not like politics. He never had. Politics were messy. They broke systems that should work. They introduced ego where logic belonged. But now politics had entered his workshop. I didn't sign up for this, Elias said quietly. Kale looked at him. You already did, he sighed. I was afraid you'd say that. They worked together for hours. Elias refined the communication framework, not to amplify Kale's authority, but to limit it. Every message was transparent, every decision traceable, every regional leader given real input. You weaken your own position, Kale observed. No, Elias said, I make it unnecessary. She studied him carefully. In my people's history, she said, every ruler feared being replaced. Elias shrugged. Then they didn't deserve the job. For a moment, Kale said nothing. Then she inclined her head not as a warrior but as a leader acknowledging an equal. The first public transmission went out. It was short. No threats, no claims of dominance, only a statement. I am Kale. I claim the throne not by force but by function. The Empire stands if it chooses to stand together. Across the galaxy, reactions were immediate and divided. Some worlds rejected the message outright, others hesitated, but many, too many tested the system. They sent data, supply requests, navigation conflicts, dispute resolutions, and the system answered quickly, fairly, without bias. Elias watched the response metrics climb. Kale, he said, they're trusting this. They are trusting the system, she corrected, not me. That made all the difference. Not everyone was pleased. Old power structures felt threatened. Councils that relied on confusion and delay suddenly found themselves exposed. Their authority weakened not by rebellion but by efficiency. One such council sent a private message, not to Kale, to Elias. The message was polite, too polite. It praised human engineering, offered resources, protection, influence, in exchange for one thing, control. Elias stared at the screen. They think I can be bought, he said. Kale's expression hardened. They think you are a lever. Elias shook his head. I'm just an engineer. No, Kale said firmly, you are worse. He looked at her. You make power optional. Elias rejected the offer. He did not insult them. He did not threaten them. He simply replied with data. Clear, undeniable proof that their council delayed decisions that harmed their own people. The message spread, not as an attack, as information. The council collapsed within a cycle. No shots fired, no violence, just clarity. Word spread fast after that. Humans were not conquerors, they were exposers. On Kestrel Station, life changed. Ships arrived, not damaged, but curious. Engineers, diplomats, analysts, all wanted to see the human who had reshaped an empire without touching a weapon. Elias avoided them all. He stayed in his workshop. I don't want to be famous, he muttered. Kale watched him with something close to amusement. Too late, she said. One night, Elias confronted her. You knew this would happen, he said. Yes. You knew they'd notice humans. Yes. And you didn't warn me. Kale met his gaze. Would you have refused? Elias opened his mouth, then closed it. No, he admitted. She nodded. That is why I chose you. Another signal arrived. This one was different, unified, imperial. The old command structure, what remained of it, was requesting formal convergence. They wanted Kale to return, publicly, as Empress. Elias felt his chest tighten. This is it, he said. Once you step into the light, there's no going back. Kale looked out at the stars. I have lived in shadow long enough. She turned to him. Will you stand with me? Elias hesitated. Then he smiled faintly. I guess I already am. As preparations began, observers across the galaxy reached the same unsettling conclusion. The Empire was not returning because of fleets, not because of fear, but because one human engineer had changed how power worked. And if humans could do that once, what else could they do? The day Kale left Kestrel Station, the stars felt closer. Elias stood on the docking platform, hands in his pockets, watching the massive command ship prepare for departure. It no longer looked damaged or lonely. It looked awake. Streams of data flowed through invisible channels. Hundreds of systems across the Empire were already linked, already synchronized. Not controlled, coordinated. Kale approached him before boarding. You do not have to come, she said. Elias looked at the ship. If I don't, I'll just worry from far away. That earned a small smile. Very well, she said, but understand this, once you step into Imperial space openly, you will never again be invisible. Elias sighed. I was invisible for a long time. It's overrated. The journey to the Imperial core took days. During that time, Elias saw the full scale of what had begun. Worlds that once ignored each other now shared data openly. Trade routes adjusted themselves automatically to prevent shortages. Old border disputes were flagged not for punishment, but for resolution. Everywhere the same pattern appeared. The system did not command, it invited, and people responded. This shouldn't work, Elias muttered while watching the flow charts. Kale stood beside him. That is what they all say. The Imperial capital was unlike anything Elias had seen. It was not a single planet, but a cluster of orbital cities arranged around a brilliant blue star. Structures curved gracefully, connected by light bridges and energy lanes. Once this place had ruled the galaxy through fear and distance. Now it waited. No fleets formed attack lines, no weapons powered up. Instead, traffic lanes cleared. Communication channels opened. The Empire was holding its breath. Kale's arrival was announced not with trumpets but with transparency. Every citizen could see her ship approach. Every system displayed the same message. The Empress returns not to command you, but to serve what we build together. Elias swallowed. You're really doing this? Kale nodded. So are you. Inside the Grand Assembly Hall, representatives from thousands of worlds gathered. Some were calm, some were angry, some looked afraid. Old rulers sat stiffly in their seats, their power already slipping through their fingers. Kale stepped forward alone. No guards, no weapons, only presence. I was born to this throne, she said, her voice steady and clear. But I was not shaped by it. Murmurs spread through the hall. She continued. Our empire failed because it feared failure. It punished deviation. It demanded obedience instead of understanding. She gestured, and the system projections activated. Live data, real outcomes. Improved lives. This, she said, is what adaptation looks like. Then the questions began. Some were respectful, some were hostile. One ruler stood and demanded, who truly holds power now, you or the human? The hall fell silent. Kale turned slowly. Neither, she said. She looked back toward Elias, standing quietly at the edge of the chamber. He built a system where power cannot hide, Kale said. That frightens those who relied on shadows. All eyes turned to Elias. He cleared his throat. I don't run your empire, he said simply. I fixed a broken structure. Someone scoffed. That's the same thing. Elias shook his head. No, if I disappear tomorrow, it keeps working. Silence followed, heavy, uncomfortable, honest. That was when resistance truly broke, not with shouting, but with understanding. Old leaders realized they could not sabotage the system without exposing themselves. Citizens realized they no longer needed permission to be heard. The throne no longer towered above the empire. It stood within it. Later, on a quiet balcony overlooking the capital star, Elias leaned against the railing. I think they hate me, he said. Kale joined him. Some do. And the rest? They are relieved, she said. He stared at the light of the star. I never wanted to change the galaxy. Kale looked at him. You didn't, he frowned. Feels like I did. No, she said gently. You reminded it how to survive. Across the galaxy, reports spread. Humans were not warriors, not rulers, not even diplomats. They were engineers of reality. Where humans went, systems became fair. Lies became expensive. Corruption became inefficient. Empires did not fear human fleets. They feared human ideas. As Kale was formally recognized as Empress, she did not sit on a throne. She stood among her people. And beside her stood a quiet human engineer, hands still smelling faintly of machine oil. For the first time in generations, the galaxy understood something important. The most dangerous species was not the one that conquered worlds. It was the one that made domination unnecessary.